Today on the Frontline Health Podcast.
They tested memory and they found that those people who took the phosphatidylserine showed significant improvements in their memory, particularly in recalling new information compared to that placebo group. And they found that people who were taking phosphatidylserine significantly reduced their post-exercise cortisol, which means their stress levels went down, they had lower fatigue, and it helped them recover much quicker, both physically and mentally.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Frontline Health Podcast by Centurion, where we share health news, tips, and insights to help you take ownership of your health and of your life. I'm your host, Evan Patrick. With me is our founder and CEO, Troy Duell. Today we're exploring the origins, benefits, and scientific backing behind an ingredient that you might not have heard of, but one that's been making waves in the world of brain health and cognitive performance. What we're talking about is phosphatidylserine. Try saying that 3 times fast.
It is a mouthful for sure. Not an easy one to do, especially if you're looking at it. I think it's harder to look at it than it is to actually say it.
Well, that's nothing new for us because that's pretty much all the ingredients we talk about on this podcast, right? So stick around as we explore where it comes from, how it works, who it helps, and what you should be aware of before considering supplementation. So why don't we start things off with a few questions. So what is phosphatidylserine and where does it come from?
Great question. So phosphatidylserine, which you may see on the back of some supplements and labels, is shortened to PS for phosphatidylserine. It's a phospholipid, which means that it's basically a type of fat. So you get phosphatidylserine, it's derived from those omega fats that we take into our diets. So when doctors and nutritionists tell you to get your good fats in, this is one of those good fats that they're talking about. And what we know is that if you break down that good fat, phosphatidylserine is one of the biggest contributors of what is good for us to find in those good fats. In 1940, scientists were actually studying the brain tissue, and they isolated it at that point in the brain, and they did it in supplement form, but had it in coming from bovine brain, so from cow brains. And unfortunately, mad cow disease in the 1990s kind of caused people to not want to take that supplement anymore.
Yeah.
But they did find that most phosphatidylserine can actually be found in some plants. And most supplements today are made from soy lecithin, not easy for me to say, or sunflower lecithin, because we know that that's a safer version, safer alternative, and it is a plant-based source. So a good thing for us to do. We know that phosphatidylserine has been used overseas for years as a nootropic, and it really seems to have some benefit and value in that brain boosting area to get us where we want to go. And it's really starting to gain even more traction in the U.S. of late.
Mm-hmm. So it's not totally new, but it's also not ancient. Why do you think it's just now starting to pick up some steam?
I think a lot of it has to do with where we are in our culture. We know that in the last couple of years, we've started to understand as individuals that being proactive in our health and really taking ownership of our health and trying to avoid even medicines sometimes if we can, I think has really started to get ingrained in our culture now, that we're looking for ways to have health hacks, if you will, other ways that we can increase our health and longevity and making sure that we're performing as best we can. And I think that is just something that is starting to get ingrained in the culture. I think that COVID probably pushed that and sped that up quite a bit. And the more we find out about medicines that maybe are harmful to us or things in our diet that are harmful, I think that is also increasing the awareness and opportunity to look for things like phosphatidylserine.
Mm-hmm. This is a little off topic, but you said health hacks. How do you feel about the term biohacking?
Biohacking, great question. I think if you're just thinking from the term of biohacking of how am I going to make my body perform and steward it the best way I possibly can, then I'm all behind biohack. But if you're thinking of biohack as turning yourself into something that you're not and able to live for 400 years, I think that's probably where it goes off track a little bit.
Maybe it's just my inner emo kid, but I have to resist using the lingo that's popular now. So I like health hacks. We'll use that instead of biohacks just to be a little bit different.
I like that too.
So how does phosphatidylserine actually work in the body?
Well, phosphatidylserine, like we mentioned earlier, was found in the brain. So we know that there are high concentrations in the brain, specifically in the brain cells, the neurons, because those are what are responsible for transmitting electrical and those chemical signals. So phosphatidylserine specifically is going to help our bodies or those cells maintain the fluidity and kind of the integrity of those brain cells. It's going to help play a role in that neurotransmitter release in order to kind of release those and help us with our mood and our focus and concentration. And then it also helps us with the support of ATP. So ATP, as we know, is the main energy source in our body, specifically within our brain. And then finally, it's going to help reduce those cortisol levels in our bodies and just kind of take some of that stress away, because we know that cortisol is really related to stress levels.
Mm-hmm. So does the body produce phosphatidylserine, or do you have to rely on intake from outside sources to get what your body needs?
Great question. It is produced in our body. So phosphatidylserine is produced in our body, but it is a limited amount. So if you can supplement and you get it in your diet, then it may be something that is of benefit. So we know that it's in the brain and the liver specifically, but we can benefit from taking in extra supplementation through either our diet or through having dietary supplements and taking those. The only vitamin that we can't get in our or our body doesn't make is vitamin C. Everything else that we take, our body is creating some of it. So phosphatidylserine is not any different than some of those others that are out there.
Mm-hmm. So anytime we start talking about the benefits of a particular ingredient or supplement, I think we want to go back to the research and look at what the research is, the conclusions the research is leading us to draw. Mm-hmm. So let's get into the research behind the benefits of phosphatidylserine, or PS for short. So what does the research say about phosphatidylserine?
Yeah, I think there are 3 studies that really in particular kind of hone in on phosphatidylserine. One of them deals with aging adults, one with young adults, and then one with athletes. In the aging adults, they took about 149 elderly adults aged 50 to 75, and this was done in the 90s, who had some type of age-related memory loss. And they took that memory loss, followed them for 12 weeks, gave some phosphatidylserine, and the others they just gave a placebo. And at the end of that time, they tested memory, and they found that those people who took the phosphatidylserine showed significant improvements in their memory, particularly in recalling new information compared to that placebo group. Mm-hmm. In the young adult group, this was something where they gave 400 milligrams of phosphatidylserine, and they did that for 2 weeks. They gave them different math tests and different quizzes and things like that. And what they found with those is the individuals who took phosphatidylserine, again, performed better under pressure, and they perceived that they had less stress, which is kind of wild to think that you could take something to make your perception of stress reduce.
I wish I had phosphatidylserine before I took those timed multiplication tables tests back in 3rd grade.
Or the capital test. That was one that always got me. You had to remember all 50. It's difficult. The final one that we wanted to discuss was how it helps athletes, especially when it comes to physical and mental stress with that. They studied these athletes. They took 600 milligrams for 10 days, or they took the placebo. They did blood samples before and after their workouts, and they found that people who were taking phosphatidylserine significantly reduced their post-exercise cortisol, which means their stress levels went down. They had lower fatigue, and it helped them recover much quicker, both physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm. So let's get really specific about this. whenever we talk about a particular ingredient, a lot of people who are passionate about taking ownership of their health, they already have all of these supplements and vitamins that they're on. And so they want to be kind of targeted with what they're prioritizing to take and taking what they need to take, but not overdoing it at the same time. So who specifically is phosphatidylserine for? Who can benefit from it the most?
That's a great question because, the trick to that, or the answer really is everybody could benefit from it. But to your point, we don't want to be taking a plate full of supplements at some time. So let's find out which individuals would be the best person to take it. So start with adults over 50 who may be stepping into some memory slips or having some brain fog. Specifically, I think brain fog is something that we've seen a lot with long COVID patients. And we know that long COVID seems to have affected not just that first 6 to 9 months after COVID now, but we're finding studies that show 2 to 3 years. So I think those are individuals who may want to look at that. College students who are under constant stress and looking at different tests and maybe feeling like they're under pressure, especially during exam week, taking it a couple of weeks to a month before they get into those exams may be a great opportunity to do that. And athletes who are continually straining and stressing their bodies day in and day out, another good opportunity to start taking it. And then anybody who's dealing with chronic stress, I think those individuals who may be going through family issues or health issues, it may be a great thing to start looking at and taking and see how you respond if you take it for 6 weeks.
So are there any potential side effects or warnings that people need to be aware of before they start taking phosphatidylserine?
The good thing is it is generally considered safe. We know that up to about 800 milligrams per day, there are very, very few side effects that have been shown with that. There are, in some cases, people who have mild GI upset, so they'll feel a little nauseated, may feel a little bloated. We know that if you take it too late in the day, with some people, you can experience some insomnia. And we also know that it does affect neurotransmitter production, and its ability to affect our neurotransmitters could affect antidepressants or any other medications that specifically target cognitive impairment or cognitive enhancement. And then the final one is everybody always asks about pregnancy or breastfeeding. And the truth is there just haven't been enough studies to say, is this good or bad? But, if it were me and I were to be a guessing man, it's already produced in our bodies, probably not going to cause a problem, but you're only pregnant for 9 months. So just avoid it altogether or ask a doctor if you really need it.
Yeah. Those are all good things to keep in mind. Before we wrap things up today, is there anything else that you would like to share?
I think the big thing is understanding that phosphatidylserine can be a part or a component of that total health package that you're trying to put in place. It's not going to be a miracle cure. We know that it is well researched, and a lot of that research shows that it does help the brain and it supports it, but understand that it is not the magic pill for all of us. So talk to your healthcare provider, take it, be very cognizant of what's going on, and be in tune with how your body is responding to that. If it responds well, then continue to take it. If it doesn't, then start to back off or stop taking it altogether.
Those are all great things to remember. Thank you for educating us on phosphatidylserine today, Troy, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Frontline Health Podcast. Until next time, go out and take ownership of your health because you are your best health advocate. If you enjoyed what you heard today on the podcast, please consider leaving us a review. We would love to hear your feedback and connect with you further. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube. And for safe, effective, and affordable health and wellness products made in the USA, visit www.centurion.health. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.